Hey guys, how's it going? It is Kire here, and playing a couple different games here. So we have Eternal Evolution, and we also have Eversoul, and both of these games have been some of the newer games I've been playing recently. We have Eternal Evolution I've been playing for a little over a month. I want to say about 40 days here, and then we got about 4 to 5 days here for, well, I want to say I'm on day 6 actually. On day 6 when it comes to Eversoul. Both of these are very similar genre games in the whole AFK genre, and I wanted to give my thoughts on this, just to have an open dialogue about this. It's not really an edited thing. I don't really have anything planned here, but I just want to kind of give you guys my thoughts and vibe on each one. And before I get into this, I do want to say I have a paid affiliate link when it comes to Eternal Evolution, but I do not have that for Eversoul. This is a game that Darth Microtransaction recommended to me, and we've both been playing it simultaneously for the past 6 days, been having fun with it, and then we just kind of noticed that it was almost identical in the type of game to Eternal Evolution and these kind of AFK arena games. And I've never played AFK arena, but people say that that's like one of the original versions of this style of game, and maybe I'm liking them a little bit more because I've never played that original one, didn't have that aspect to it. So been having fun playing these, and I wanted to give the kind of pros and cons for this, which one to play, which one to choose, and just from a person that has the perspective of both of these games. These are pretty popular recently. I did want to show this because I thought this was interesting. On the Google Trends here, the red line represents Eversoul and Eternal Evolution is the blue line. And for a game like this, it's really popping off. I bet Eternal Evolution, if I had to guess, is probably more Western, whereas you got kind of a global appeal in Eversoul. That's why it's going to the moon here. And when it comes to these kind of gacha games, when it comes to this aesthetic, they seem to be pretty popular. So I want to go over the pros and cons of these games here. I think the big elephant in the room when it comes to UI is a really annoying connection issue. And also I do want to show that this is on an M1, or it's an M2 iPad Pro, but when it comes to this, any M1 Pro can do this. Even though there's M1s on an iPad Air, unfortunately can't do this. It's called Stage Manager. This has been super useful when it comes to playing mobile games, especially multiple mobile games simultaneously. You put them in Stage Manager, you have multiple windows here, and it's true multitasking. This is so much better than an emulator because those are painfully laggy. I was doing that with IMR, and when they had their mobile or the actual PC client come through, it was been such a nice breath of fresh air because BlueStacks is painfully laggy compared to an actual optimized experience. This is as close as we're going to get to something like that, but unfortunately it requires an entire iPad, and not only one of the more expensive ones, but you can get a good deal on a used M1 11-inch Pro, Wi-Fi only. The performance is really not that much of a difference between the M1 and the M2, but if you're into mobile games and you're a spender, why not whale out on an actual device here instead of the game itself? This has been really cool to do this, and so I can kind of swap between the two games here because of that, and maybe people would have questions on how I'm doing this, and that is how I am doing it, is with a M series iPad Pro. So the big thing is the connectivity issues when it comes to this game. I think this has been easily the most frustrating thing I've been dealing with when playing this game, where you're trying to click buttons in this. Watch me just click all the buttons. So I clicked arc twice, didn't work. Click shop twice, didn't work. Go bag twice. This is something that is plaguing this game. I thought it was like an iPad thing, maybe because it was blown up. I tried it on the phone. The phone has that same issue everywhere I go. Multiple people have been complaining about this, where it says that kind of connectivity issue in the top corner. I think that's a pretty embarrassing issue and could probably turn a lot of people off. It makes the game feel cheap. It makes it like this is just a quick cash grab. I don't think it necessarily is, but that is the feeling I would get for something like this when I see that kind of weird server issue. I hope they address that ASAP because I think that's going to be a big turnoff. Also, you're going to notice a massive difference with the aesthetic here. This is like the kind of women gotcha thing. When it comes to all the characters, they're all women. The only guy in this game is the savior, which is you. That is the only guy. And then everyone else, there's no even dudes at all. Like every single person you can pull in this game is a girl. So keep that in mind. And then this one by far is the biggest difference between that. If we go to the characters here, like all these are, this is probably the most unique aesthetic I've ever seen when it comes to a game like this. Maybe it's going to hurt them because games are going even further beyond this kind of like very in your face, very sexualized aesthetic. Just look at Nike or Nikkei, however you pronounce it. That one's taking it all the way to the moon there. But aesthetic wise, Eternal Evolution is going to be way sci-fi, the complete opposite of that. Let's get into a match here. Notice how in the bottom corner here, or no, just the bottom row, you have these buttons. There's basically two types of moves. You have this move here that's kind of like your it's almost like your semi main move. You have a passive, obviously, you have multiple other moves there, but then you have your ult, the ult power, but you have to choose which character actually uses their ult. It is not something that everyone could use. Like, for example, if I go here, you want to pick a character that has a good ult. This is one of the better ones. It sleeps everyone, and sleep in this game is basically a stun. But notice how no one else gets the ult. It was only her, and you have to kind of choose that. Whereas if we go here in this game, when it comes to autoing, everyone gets their ult, and then you're gonna end up using it. That's his ult there, and then we have Taylor here. He uses his ult. Everyone gets their own ult, but there's no kind of middle move there that this game has here. And I think that's kind of one of the bigger changes here. Also, when it comes to another UI thing, I do want to say, notice how it says next stage autoing. You don't get that convenience in Eversoul at all, which is easily one of the best quality of life things I've ever seen. And when it comes to one of these games comparatively, like, I thought that would just be par for the course, because this is the first version of this game that I've ever played, and I thought that was just a nice thing. If you could beat the stage, you're just going to auto it, and it's going to let you go to the next one automatically. Yes, there is times when you hit big milestones, like let's say I hit stage 100 or 110 in this situation, like whenever you would expect a big milestone, they're going to try to sell you something. They're going to try to sell you a pack or whatever. But as long as you can keep beating it, you're going to go through this and you just set it and you can do a couple stages without it. Whereas in this, even if you win, you're going to have to constantly keep managing it when it comes to Eversoul. So that's one other thing that I think Eternal Evolution has over it. Where I think Eversoul shines, here, let me just back out of this, is how they do the characters and how they do the team compositions. They do a really good job of getting extra bonuses when it comes to how you build your team, and then also how you do the formation that it doesn't exist in Eternal Evolution. And also, just one thing, I just think this is so cool that I can have this playing in the background and be on this app here. But if we go into a match, like let's say we go in here, I could change my formation. So like I have 2 front row, 2 back, or 3 back row. That's going to give me, it makes sense, it's like a balanced formation. So we have the front row that's 9% HP, 9% defense. But if I want to go defensive, then I can have more people in the front row. That's going to give me a little bit more tankiness, but not as big of a percentage. And then the back row only gets 9% attack. Whereas in the other one, it's only 6% attack, but I'm not being able to spread as much defensive stats on that front row there. Then you can have a ranged one here. And also just keep in mind, match the color of the circles with the actual text so you can know. So like range, you would think that it's unfortunate that it goes down to only 4% attack, but you get more characters with that 4% attack versus that front row gets 16% defense and 16% HP. And I think this is a nice little change there in being able to kind of think of strategies and be able to use your team comps in a smart way. Also, what you could do is notice how I have 4 types of the same character here, 20% attack, 20% HP. But like, let's say I change it, I take out one of these fairy characters, because this game has 4 types of characters here, and then 2, these are the really rare ones, the angels and demons, and there's unique stuff there, but they're so rare. They're like 4-month grinds or like 0.04% chance of pulling. So I haven't pulled any, but it's the typical one of these situations where the human like beats beast, beast beats fairy, whatever. It's like the rock, paper, scissors meta. But then based on how you build your team comp, it's going to give you extra stats. So I have 4 fairies here, so I'm getting 20% attack and 20% HP. But like, let's say I go take that out and then put in another beast, then I get 15 and 15 because I have 3 of one type and 2 of the other, but no demons. And demons is one of those really rare ones I was talking about. So then I could do something like, if like, for example, I just did 5 fairies, then that's even more stats. That'd be like 25%, for example. So I could do something like that. This is all things that you cannot do in Eternal Evolution. I thought this was a fun mechanic here. And then there's other things too. I really like games like this where they really emphasize a wide roster. Both games do this really well. And then here's an example of like when you hit a milestone, they're going to sell you a pack. Perfect example of that on stage 100, and then I just hit it again. I like how both of these games, you don't have to worry about attempts. You can just back in and out and never have to worry about losing a resource there if you can't beat it. That is something that like IMR, for example, or like Raid Shadow Legends doesn't do. Once you try to do an attempt, you're going to waste the energy. Whereas these AFK games, you don't have to worry about that, which I really like. But both of these games do a really good job of having a wide roster. So like, as you saw, the benefits of having multiple characters in a certain team comp, and then also different game modes that benefit that. Like, for example, this avatar thing here. So this is me beating hard, getting good rewards there. I think these games are very generous. But like, let's say I want to do this. There's all these different teams I'm going to need to use. I have team 1, team 2, and team 3. So it really emphasizes needing a big roster. In Arena, for example, same thing. Whereas you go to a Galactic Arena here, you're going to need to have a roster of multiple characters. Here, let me just go to my defensive. Notice how you need 3 different teams here. And I like that. I like games that are emphasize a wide roster instead of just having one big meta team comp. It makes it kind of boring in my opinion. They do that here when it comes to having those different comps and emphasizing needing to put more of, like, let's say a whole bunch of fairies on a team or a whole bunch of human-like characters on a team, and then you can go to adventure, and then eventually when you beat 835, way down here, breakthrough, like see how they have like a human-like gate, a beast gate, a fairy gate, and as you go through you can only use fairies against them, and it just creates for more exciting scenarios than just having everything goes and then you just only want to pick the best characters and then everyone else doesn't get used. I think these games do a good job at that from the get-go, whereas like when I played Raid, it took a long time for that to get implemented with like Doom Tower and stuff like that, whereas that took quite a while, even though that's a different game. It's not an AFK arena game like this one is, or like these two I should say. So those are pretty much my thoughts on these and how the games work. I think one thing though, I think this town system, I've never been a fan of this when it comes to these games. Also, I think it's kind of bizarre. Maybe this is like how these games work, but I just think it's really weird on how they're trying to like monetize like connection with these characters and stuff. I just think that's weird to me. Like for example, you get like texted and stuff, and also it's like you try to play this at work and then you got these like characters with these big ass titties. It's like look at this. It's just like these characters are intentionally over sexualized. Like here's one, you know, it's just a lot, and I think that is something to keep in mind. Maybe this is just par for the course when it comes to these games now, but that's one thing I do like about Eternal Evolution is that they don't do with any of the weird sexual stuff. They don't do anything with the, like for example, they text you and stuff. I just think this is weird. I just want to play the game and have fun with that. I haven't really looked into the story. Some of these are good. I remember when I was playing Guardian Tales, I thought that was legitimately a good story. It had a little mystery in there, you know, it would have good like kind of cliffhangers before the next chapter and stuff, whereas I just skipped through all of it when it came to both of these games actually, so I'm not sure. But that's kind of my first thoughts on both of these. Curious to hear your guys' thoughts below. Hopefully this kind of breaks it down in the very unique case scenario where you happen to have experience playing Eternal Evolution, or maybe you want to give Eternal Evolution a shot. You totally can. There's a link down below if you want to give that a shot. There, I think both of these games are good. So far, UI wise, I think Eternal Evolution is winning, but both of these, I'm having a lot of fun with both of these games. If anything, I am liking the harder challenge of Eversoul versus Eternal Evolution. I think it's a little easier of a game in my opinion, but there is more frustrating things with UI, and there's more tedious things like the town and doing these weird date things kind of thing. So that they both have their pros and cons. So that's going to be it when it comes to this video here. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. And with that, guys, I'm out of here. Peace.